Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Join me, Courtney Lewis,
And me, Carly Ferguson,
in our conversational podcast about everyday situations.
You can count on us to tell it to you straight with our own sisterly spin.
Consider this a phone call with your own Southern sisters as we discuss with you personal accountability, healthy relationships, managing responsibilities, and contributing to society.
Each episode will consist of straight talk and a call to action.
Your sisters are calling.
Thanks for answering. Welcome to Hey Sister. This is episode 17, Family Ties. Today we'll be diving into the third topic in our 4-part series on various loving relationships in the life of a busy woman. We've already discussed the role of double dates and group dates with your husband 2 weeks ago, and loving and caring for yourself and other moms after having a baby in last week's episode. This week, we're going to light your week up with some inspiring stories that'll have you thoughtfully considering your relationships with extended family.
I have the pleasure of introducing our sisterhood to today's guest, a friend of mine who shares the same first name. We are joined today by Courtney Collins Kimball. I first met Courtney when my husband and I lived in San Antonio, Texas, a decade ago. She was an inspiration when my husband and I were just at the beginning stages of our infertility diagnosis, and I remember her words of sympathy and encouragement. I was so impressed by her love of motherhood, her family's fun travel log, her faith in God, her passion for humanity, and her involvement with her extended family. Courtney is a devoted wife and mother to 9 incredible children, a mother-in-law, and the founder of One Common Thread Quilts, a humanitarian business set up to help the women of Central America lift themselves out of poverty while working from home. She is just someone who has a contagious zeal for life, and we are so honored to have her with us today. Courtney, welcome to Hey Sister.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're so excited to have you.
So, Courtney, since our episode is all about creating relationships with extended family, could you tell us a little bit about your family of origin, where you grew up, and how you came to live in Texas?
Sure. I am one of 7 children, and I was born and raised in Northern California, just right outside of Sacramento and San Francisco, right between, a little town called Vacaville. I had a very idyllic childhood. I grew up on a ranch, and I had a wonderful time with lots of brothers and sisters to keep me busy. Then my husband, little did I know, he was going to come out to California and find me, and he was helping his sister move out there. We ended up at the same going back to college party, and I knew everybody in the room except for him. So I just walked right up and said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And yeah, it was just one of those moments where I thought he was adorable, but I also thought he was super young and really wasn't totally interested, but he kept pursuing me. And what can you do? You know, and they make you feel so special. We got married in 1993, exactly 4 months from the day we met.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty funny because about 3 weeks into our relationship, he wanted to propose. So he called my dad and asked for my hand. And my dad said, "She's been dating you for 3 weeks. She must really like you." So we were married, and we've just been on this fun journey of having kids. So actually, we started off with infertility issues. I'm sure I've shared that with you before, Courtney.
I remember that.
And apparently we figured it all out with the doctors, and we are blessed with 9 children, 8 living and only 5 at home still. So now we're starting to feel really small.
I love that you're starting to feel really small. It's still more kids than either of us have. So
there's a perspective when you go from having 8 kids under one roof to having only 5, it's a huge difference, but they still keep me really busy. And in 2 years, we'll only have 3 at home because my twins will be graduated from high school. They're juniors right now. So then we'll really be small. We'll be like normal people. It'll be so crazy.
Speaking of all these kids that you've got, this wonderful family that you were raised with, and you live in Texas, how do you keep those relationships with your extended family strong when you're living out of state from where you were raised or where your extended family might live?
That is so true. So I have, like I said, I was born and raised in Northern California. I now live in San Antonio, Texas. So that is a very long drive. And I've been here now for 28 years in Texas. My husband has been amazing about giving me the opportunities to go and see my family. And actually, most of my family ended up relocating to Utah area because of taxes and everything else out in California. I'm really lucky that they all live within a 20-mile radius of each other. When I go to Utah, I can see them all, but I am the only one that does not live close to family. Well, I should say doesn't live close to my family. I live very close to my husband's family.
I love that your husband has made it a priority for you to get to see your family. You've told me some ways that he's done that in the past. Can you share some of those cool ideas with our sisterhood?
I know for sure that anytime I really ever got cranky, especially when we were first married and we only had 1 or 2 children, actually up until we had about 5, I was always going to California. And it was because the minute I got cranky, he's like, it's time for you to go home. You need to go see your family. And he knew that I needed that rejuvenation of having my mom kind of step in and be the mom for a little bit and letting me be a kid for a little bit and just love on my kids. He was always very good to me that way. He's totally family oriented too. So it's great because he always wants to do things with his family and he always wants to do things with my family. So if we had a family reunion from his side or from my side, we would be torn because we absolutely love each other's families.
How did you incorporate both sides of your families for having these 9 children? Because I'm sure there was lots of special occasions.
There is, and there has been. And not everybody always gets to come. I'm pretty understanding in the fact that I grew up in more humble circumstances. We didn't have a lot when I was growing up. My dad was a teacher. My mom stayed at home. And I actually remember a period of time when our refrigerator broke and we could not afford to buy a new one. And we lived with just our coolers on the back porch. Thank heavens it was during the winter months. So everything stayed cool, but there was never ice cream because that just didn't stay cool enough. So we didn't really grow up going to a lot of family occasions, especially because my mom was from the East Coast. And I really missed that as a kid. I didn't want that to be the same situation for my own kids. So I just thought, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that we can see them or they can see us as much as possible. And it's been hard. But let me tell you, when I was 17, I had this totally unusual thing happen in the fact that I lost my 13-year-old brother. He drowned on a camp out. It was just devastating for my family. That was the end of my senior year in high school. I actually went off to college 3 weeks later because I was starting for summer term. And I went through summer term and fall, just going through my own personal grieving. And crazy enough, went home for Christmas. And in January of the next year, so just 7 months later, my older brother died in his sleep. So out of 7 kids, now we were down to 5. And I had 3 brothers, so 2 had passed away, and then I have 3 sisters. I could never say that I was ever grateful for those trials because I could see benefits of them as I was going through the years. But now I totally see how that just was what completely glued my family together solid. We knew we had to be there for each other no matter what. And so I'm super close with all my siblings. And even the ones that have passed away, I feel them very close because we keep those relationships close and we still talk about them so much. So I've always been really fortunate to keep a really close family relationship with my own siblings and my own parents. And I remember when I married a Texan, my dad said, if this was the 1800s, you'd be going off on a wagon and we'd never see you again. Just to put it in perspective for me. And I was just like, no way. So even with long distance bills as young marrieds, I didn't care. I mean, those were the days of long distance bills. And I would budget my $75 a month for me to be able to talk to my family. So it was kind of cool because I was having all these little kids and I was really the first daughter in my family to get married. I have an older sister and she's 7 years older. And then I have 2 younger sisters, one's 7 years younger and one's 9 years younger. And I got married when I was 19, so I was super young. And my older sister was 26 and kind of resenting that I got married before her. And she actually didn't get married until she was 40. And my little sisters were little. What is that, 11 and 13? So it was a long time until there was another brother-in-law in the family. And so the funny thing was that my husband, he just took it on as it's my wife and all her sisters. And he would plan like vacations. We would take a sister with me to help me with the kids or just so that I had a friend. And it was wonderful. And even when my littlest sister, Chelsea, she's 9 years younger than me. She would come every summer for the next 7 years for about 6 weeks during the summer to help me with my kids, to just be my friend. And I just remember, I don't know, there's just nothing that I've ever felt like I couldn't do. Probably someone should have told me, there are some things you cannot do. But one of the things that I loved to do was go water skiing. And my husband would have to be at work all day. And we had this little old boat that I could put on behind my SUV. And my sister and I would just take my two oldest kids. I think at the time they were 4 and 6. And we would take them to the lake for the day, just us two and them. Wow. And I'd back the trailer down and put the boat in the water, and we just did it ourselves. And I don't know, no one ever told me I couldn't. So I just did it. And my husband was fine with it. And we had wonderful, wonderful experiences and memories. So it was great.
I know Courtney has had our younger sister come visit her and has had such a blast with that. And it's really fun because there's 10 years from you to Cassidy. Right. And so it's like building that relationship in a new way with the kids involved, and that closeness between the aunts and the kids is so fun too.
For sure. My oldest was in 3rd grade, and my sister came surprisingly early at the end of the school year. And I took her into the school to see him. And to me, because he was my oldest, 3rd grade felt like a super old kid because all I had were all these little kids underneath. And I just remember him jumping up out of his seat in the class and running across the classroom to the door and jumping into her arms with like legs around her, arms around her, big bear hug. And I was like a little embarrassed for him, but at the same time, it was thrilling to know that they were so close. I mean, my kids just love their aunts, all of them.
Oh, I love that so much. I can totally relate to that feeling of having the youngest sister come visit you, and how that's just such a blast of energy too, because I'm similar to you, got married really young, and it's definitely helped me to have more energy sometimes raising kids, but at the same time, having a young aunt, now there's some energy. And it's good too, because I felt like for me, that helped me to keep that relationship strong when I felt like I left the house without really getting to be there for her growing up years. I'm leaving the house when she's 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And so when it was like, hey, but I still get to see you for weeks during the summer, it was great. She would come and help us with our dog because we didn't have kids for a long time. So she would help us have birthday parties for the dogs. That's how exciting of an aunt life she had. It sounds like jet skiing was a much more fun activity for your sister Chelsea to enjoy than throwing a dog birthday party, which is what my sister got to enjoy.
Oh, but for Cassidy's a dog lover. So I think that's a pretty good thing for her too.
Maybe.
Look how important it is for Cassidy too, because for me, I felt like I was the benefiter of all of it. And little did I realize how much it really was benefiting her as well, because she was learning so much about becoming a mom and having little kids and knowing that this was hard stuff.
And this is a sidestep, but you said nobody told me I couldn't or something along those lines for skiing. And I just listened to an audiobook by Mandy Arioto. She's over the MOPS playgroups, if you've heard of them, the mothers of preschoolers. Mm-hmm. And so she has this book, Have More Fun. And in it, she says, you need to do things with your friends that are share an absurdity, is how she says it. Do something crazy with your friends, because we still need fun moments. Just because we're moms doesn't mean we can't go and have a thrill, right? Like jet skiing. So I think that's perfect. And what a perfect thing to do with your sister. No judgments.
We definitely made a lot of memories. And we actually, for all those summers that she came, we would even make a mixtape for it. And what was going to be that song of the summer. And now I hear those songs that come on every once in a while on all these channels. And it really brings back such wonderful memories of having her in our home during those weeks during the summer.
Oh, mixtape. There you go, Courtney. I love that.
I'm old. Okay. I'm the old version of this Courtney.
No, you're not. You're not at all. But I just love it. I remember mixtapes, but it's a word that I haven't heard in a while, but I love it.
With these experiences that you've kept, what other benefits have you seen in keeping the relationships tight with your extended family?
Obviously, being very close. As my siblings started having children, I stayed close with their kids, and we all, I don't know, we're just this huge family on both sides of my family. On my husband's side as well, I'm super close with my nieces and nephews and my brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws on that side. I mean, we just really love to be together and we love to share so much. And on my husband's side, it's super easy with my kids because I have actually a cousin for every single one of my children, because I have the second oldest grandchild on that side. And I also have the second youngest grandchild on that side.
You go, girl.
Yeah, we had children to match everybody's family on my husband's side of the family.
Generous of you.
I feel like I'm the bridge. It keeps the young ones and the old ones together.
You were the car that everybody was waiting for when they were coming.
We still are.
Yeah.
When are they going to get here?
So, and then on my side of the family, my brother had children and they're all the same age as my older kids. And then my little sisters had children the same young age as my little kids. And so when we get together, still, that's super fun. I mentioned my sister, Kim, who's 9 years older. When she got married when she was 40, she had a daughter when she was 41 who was born with severe disabilities. And her name is Lily, and she's a beautiful little girl, but she's never been able to walk or talk. So that's always been a big challenge for my sister, because she just felt like she was going to get married and she was going to have all these kids, and she only had Lily. It was kind of neat in the fact that we're all so close, my sisters and I, that we just all said, okay, well, we'll just share our kids with you and you can share Lily with us. So when she goes on her adventures, we will take over and take care of Lily, because her husband's an adventurist and they've been all over. She's hiked over the Swiss Alps and up to base camp of Mount Everest, because her husband's done everything. And so one time I actually had Lily for 32 days, but it was okay because we moved to Honduras right before COVID had started. And there was a period of time where one of my kids just wasn't flourishing in Honduras because we were homeschooling, and it was super hard for her being a sixth grader and homeschooled and in this 3-bedroom apartment with 6 kids, because that's who we took with us at the time. And so I just called my sister, Kim, and said, hey, it's just not working out with Bella. Can she come live with you for a while? And that's what's so wonderful is right away, my sister was just like, yes, I will take her. No problem. I mean, and she didn't just take her. It was only 6 months, but she took her on vacation with them. They went to Hawaii. She redecorated a room in her house for Bella and enrolled her in school and gave her the attention and the love that she needed during that time. Then when we were able to get the kids in school in Honduras, Bella came back and lived with us. But she and my sister are so close. She looks at her as seriously her second mother.
That is so sweet. I love hearing about other sister bonds. That's the whole purpose of this podcast. We know that not everybody has a sister in their family, and hearing your sister relationships, Carly and I can feel that same sister love within our family. But I hear all the time that people are like, oh, I don't have a sister. I have brothers only. But hearing that story just makes my heart swell with love for sisters, but also just for women all around the world. Because I love that that was also part of your experience in Honduras, was growing a sisterhood with other women. And we'll have to talk about that a little bit more too, because I know that you have this love for your sisters and also love for so many other women as well.
I think we have this love for our sisters, our siblings, and how beautiful that we get to see that evolve as our kids grow relationships with them. Because when Courtney had Cruz and then Cozy, and feeling the love I feel for her kids and my brother's kids, my in-laws, their kids, you feel this connection and like, yeah, I would do anything for them. And what makes your heart feel so much more anchored, just feeling more at ease, is that you know that there are other loved ones of yours that love your kids, because our kids, they take up the majority of our heart space and mental space, everything, right? We're thinking about how to do something for them. And so knowing that there are those that we love, that love them so much, just helps calm my fears at least, and make me love those people that much more. So beautiful thing.
I think that the more love a child can receive, the better. If it's coming from your siblings or the teachers at school, whoever can help and is loving them and has good, righteous intentions, I feel very blessed to have more people, because I think that those kids need to feel that security and that love. And even if everybody doesn't have sisters, I'm super close with my sister-in-law, and I just love her so much. And when she has trials and when she hurts, I hurt. My heart hurts. And I realize that it doesn't have to be this blood bond. It can definitely be just this friendship and love that we have for one another.
Absolutely. So you've shared some stories about your kids benefiting from relationships with their aunts and uncles. Have you had any other experiences where you've had relationships with nieces or nephews?
Most people know about my niece, Jessica, who came to live with us because, funny enough, when she was living with us, and I don't know if you even remember this, Courtney, but we did a reality TV show for TLC.
I can't remember. I think it had ended right when we moved into San Antonio. So I feel like we'd heard about it, but I've never seen it. I need to go watch it. Is it available still?
Yeah, no, it's not. We were so boring. No, I'm just joking. We taped it right when my niece was living with us. She was having a very hard time making poor choices and friend choices. And so my brother just felt like it would be a better situation for her to start anew somewhere. And so when she was 16, after kind of a harsh night out, he picked her up and he didn't go home. He just drove her straight to Texas. And so they arrived 22 hours later and he just knocked on our door and said, I just need your help. And
wow.
I said, sure, bring her in. And funny enough, they were taping this reality show. It was really based on my husband's work, but because we have so many kids and it's crazy that my husband has his own business and then comes home to chaos at home, the cameras were in our home as well. And so Jessica was a big part of that because they love to see, oh, how are you disciplining her? And it made me really realize how reality TV works. And it is very, very much scripted.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that they like to say, okay, now why don't you get mad at her because she didn't fold? I'm like, I didn't ask her to fold any clothes. And they're like, but what if she didn't? What would you do? I'm like, oh, Jessica, you stinker, fold those clothes. And so we just had this funny national relationship of having my niece live with us. And she was wonderful. Now she's 29. That's how long ago it's been. And she is wonderful, married and has a child and just a wonderful young woman, wonderful mother, I should say. I probably shouldn't call her a young woman anymore. So we had Jessica and that kind of started a trend. Like I mentioned, when I was 17, my oldest brother died in his sleep. And it was actually the weekend of President's Day. He had a girlfriend who we didn't realize he had gotten pregnant right before he passed away. And we didn't really know her very well. And at the funeral, she came up and whispered in my mom's ear, hi, I'm Tiffany. And, I was dating your son and I just found out I'm pregnant. So it was a whirlwind. And 9 months later, my sweet little nephew, Corey, was born on October 1st, 1993. And I remember that day very well because my mom called me. I was at school in college and she said, oh, I just want to let you know you're an auntie again. And I was just so confused because I had just seen my brother who was married. He and his wife were not pregnant.
So you didn't know who was pregnant. You were wondering who she was talking about.
Yes. I was just like, are you talking about like a close family friend that I might consider their child, like niece or nephew? She's like, no, your brother, his girlfriend just had a baby. And I think I was a little bit mortified and like shocked and I didn't know what to think. And it was so perfect because at the time I was engaged to my now husband and he was sitting right next to me when she called on our landline phone. and he just looked at me and goes, that's awesome. You have a part of your brother still here on earth. Aren't you so lucky? And it was just like, that's all I needed. He gave me permission to just love. And so it was a wonderful opening to having Corey in our lives. And my parents were really great about keeping that relationship open. They were always having him over as a child. And as soon as he could come over and spend the night without his mom, he was spending the nights at my parents' home. And so we went through all these years and he's only 2 years older than my oldest son. And so when it came to vacations, we would go to Disneyland with our kids. We would take Corey with us. And we just really felt it a privilege to help raise my brother's child, even though my brother never got to meet him here. However, I know my brother's been very close to him all these years because there's just so much in him. But when he was 16, his paternal grandfather, we hadn't lost contact, but we just didn't see each other as often because my brother's girlfriend had gotten remarried and had a new family with her new husband. And my dad had passed away. My mom had moved to Utah. Corey was being raised in California. So we just weren't seeing him as often as we would have liked. And Corey was he wasn't doing anything wrong. He just was not doing anything. He was just sitting on the couch all day playing video games and wouldn't go to school, wasn't really doing much of anything. And so his paternal grandfather actually called my husband, which I really appreciated. And he said, I don't know what to do about Corey. His mother, and as his grandfather, we've been talking about it, and we were trying to figure out what would be best for him. And we were wondering if he could come and live with you and Courtney. And without hesitation, my husband said, yeah, bring him down, send him down. We want him. So Corey came to live with us when he was 17 years old, and he got his GED, and he moved in and lived in our spare bedroom. And he started working at my husband's office, just like maintenance, sweeping in the back shop area. And we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we told him, this is what we expect for our own son. And we would hope that you would want to go on a mission. And so we want you to plan. We knew he wasn't going to go straight to college or anything. And so we said, you've got this opportunity to work right now, work and save your money. And we think that you should go on a mission. He didn't bat an eyelash. He just said, okay, I'll go on a mission.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was funny too, because he was living in our guest room and it was a mess. It was such a pigsty. And I had to go in and show him, this is how you make the bed. This is how you put your clothes away. And he was just like, that's all you have to tell me. Just show me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And it was incredible. I'm sure his mom was really upset because he just did everything we wanted him to do without question. And I'm sure that it was just because he was probably just trying to please us and keep us happy. But
it's a fresh start. How many of us would love a fresh start and new circumstances? You're starting with a fresh, clean slate. So that's awesome.
Seriously. And so he started driving on the freeway, all these things he had never done growing up in a rural town in California. He worked for my husband. He saved all of his money to go on his mission. And the neatest thing was when he opened up his mission call, he was called to the exact same mission that my husband served in, which is the Guatemala City South mission. And when he said it out loud, my son, who's the oldest in our family, said, oh, Corey got my mission call. That's where I was supposed to go.
Oh.
And we just felt like it was the way that the Lord communicated to us that he was pleased. And it made me feel very close to my brother, who I knew was very pleased that we had gotten him to that point, and that Corey went on to go on a mission and learn Spanish. And he came back, and we'd actually saved all his money that he had saved for his mission. And we saved that for him because we knew that he did not have anybody that was going to help pay for any kind of education. We gave him his savings back to him and said, we took care of your mission, and we want you to take this money and spend it wisely and spend it on a trade or go to college or do something that will help benefit you and your future. He actually became an apprentice for a mortician, and he got his certificate and license. And now he's a licensed mortician in California, and he's married and has a son. It's the most wonderful thing because you just see the circle of life, and you see the influence that my brother who's passed, my dad who's passed, and of course, like we said, all of these adults in his life that just love him and the difference they made in his life.
As Courtney and I talked about this episode and wanting to talk about loving our extended family. And of course, you came to her mind and she told me a little bit about you. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, loving our extended family. And before this, I thought in the terms of adults, right? Our aunts, our uncles, our sisters. And as we're talking now, it's so refreshing also to be thinking about the coming generations and those that are younger and our nieces and nephews as a part of that, and the love that we get to share with them and we get to feel from them, and how truly deep it goes both directions, that we can feel connected to our elders and those that are younger than us. We can feel their love. And what an amazing story, but experience that you had to be able to connect to your brother through helping his son and learning about him and what that will do for his own son. It's really wonderful to talk about because we can all take this and be thinking, who can I love more around me? And you have already a pretty full plate, right, of children under your household. And you expanded your walls and you were not afraid. Of course, you took it on. Like your husband saying, yes, of course, and them showing up on your doorstep. We can expand our walls out past the location that we currently reside in. We can continue to help and to serve even our nieces and nephews. I love that. Thank you.
Well, what's kind of interesting is I say I have 9 children because my last child, she was a twin, and her twin was born stillborn. I just cannot not count her because all of my kids, we were counting on that 9th child, and she was born stillborn, but her twin is my little Capri. And actually we had named her Quinn. I know I didn't think about Quinn the twin, but now Quinn is on the other side and she is waiting for all of us. And isn't that funny that my brothers are on the other side with her, and my kids will say, she's by herself. We're all here. And I just get to remind them, no, she's not. She's not by herself. She's with her uncles. She's got her grandfather there and her extended family, and they're all just waiting for you guys to make good choices. We can all be together again. And so I get to be a part of raising my brother's son here, and he gets to be a part of loving on my daughter there.
That is so beautiful to think about. I love that imagery when you just close your eyes and you can imagine what's happening here on this earth and what's happening in the heavens, in the hereafter, or it's not really hereafter. It's kind of now, it's just not here. I just think that is so beautiful. And I love the fact that you had that experience with Corey, but I also love the work that went into that you didn't even know was going to result in that relationship. The fact that you would take Disneyland trips and include him, that's one of those things that's honestly an overwhelming thought to think, let's add another kid to our vacation. Sometimes my mind is blown by thinking about, okay, we're going to bring strollers, and just trying to think about how are we going to navigate through this theme park? It's going to be crowded. Trying to add an extra person is intimidating to me. So kudos to you. But I also know that we can all do it. It's expanding, like Carly mentioned, expanding the walls of your home. Your home didn't actually get bigger. Your heart didn't actually get bigger. You just made room. And I love that.
I don't think I could have done it without my husband's help. My husband's the type that's just like, we can do this. Of course we can. I mean, just like backing the boat down on the boat ramp and putting it in the lake. He was just like, of course you can do that. Of course we can have another child. Of course we can. And he's always had this can-do attitude. And I think it's an example for me that I just thought, yeah, of course we can. And it's something that I get to share with my own kids because there's a lot of hard things that are going on. And my 3 oldest kids have now been on missions for our church, and they're always being put together with companions that just need love and help and support. And I think it's because my kids are just happy. They're just happy to be where they're at. And I always tease that, they're cute. They're not the smartest tools in the shed, but they're sure adorable kids. And they're happy kids. And so they're always an asset wherever they go because they just make everything happy. And I think that just really is from my husband's example of just, let's do this.
I know that happiness is a huge message within your family, but hard work is clearly a pillar of your family. That's what I observed a decade ago. I feel so old saying a decade ago, but it really is true. I'm like, wow. Yeah. So a decade ago, your hard work influence really stuck out to me. And I know that you've got a philosophy about that. Would you mind sharing that with our sisters?
I totally think that hard work is a big part of raising kids and teaching them how to make sacrifices and teaching them perspective. So like I mentioned before, there was a period of time where we moved to Honduras, and my husband told me it's just going to be 1 year. And of course we got there in 2017. And after 1 year, he said, oh, just kidding. I need 2 more years. And so we had 6 of our kids with us, and my 2 oldest had already left the nest. So my oldest at home was going into his sophomore year. He was not thrilled that it would end up that he would graduate from high school down there. And we had a lot of rough moments with my kids, with just adjusting to not having Friday night lights and homecoming and football games and all that fun stuff that comes along with being a teenager. Driving. We were living in a very dangerous city in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. It was the murder capital of the world back in 2010. It'd gotten a little bit safer by the time we got there, but still I think it was like number 5 or something when we first got there. It's pretty dangerous. It's run by gangs. And I always tried to, at first, talking to people, I didn't ever want to say anything poorly about the city or about Honduras. And my friends who are native and from there, they're like, no, it is dangerous here. It is scary. You need to be careful. And you guys do stick out. So that first year we spent at home in our apartment, and I was homeschooling the kids, and I was just trying to pass the time. And then when my husband said it's going to be 2 more years, I said, okay, we've got to have faith and courage, and we've got to get out of this apartment. And so we got the kids into school, and we were obviously very involved in our church congregation, and my husband was made bishop. And so if you're familiar with the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, you're bishop of everybody that lives within your congregation, even if they're not members of your church. And so anybody who needed help, and let me tell you, everybody needed help. And my husband took that literally and seriously, and anybody who needed something, he was always there to help them and try to figure out ways to help them. And so at first we were just kind of like posting pictures of like really sad circumstances on Facebook and saying, hey, which one of our friends wants to buy this family a bed so that they're not all sleeping on this dirt floor with everything around them. And we were doing that at first. And then we realized there weren't any jobs. And some of the people were just like, we just want to make money. If there was a way we could make money. And it was the women mostly, because the men were doing a lot of hard labor outside of the home. And so I had one gal ask me if there was a way she could make money. And I just thought, you know what, I'm hand sewing this quilt for my daughter. Maybe you can help me get a head start on it. And it's just little English paper piecing. It's all hand pieced, and it was super simple. It's just time consuming. I taught her how to do it, and I paid her $20, which I didn't realize was almost as much as her father makes in 1 week of hard labor work, 8 to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
That puts it in perspective for you. And so, of course, after that, her mother, her aunts, her cousins started calling me saying, can we sew for you? And it really got me out of my comfort zone, because I wasn't speaking Spanish very much. Going into the slums was very dangerous. My friends who are native Hondurans don't go into the slums. And here I stick out like a sore thumb because I'm North American. But I would take my kids in there, and I just decided to work on faith and work on the spirit and try to decipher if I felt safe going in that day. And some days I didn't feel safe, so we didn't go in, and we just started serving the people. And I taught my kids so much about amazing things that they have in their life. Even now we're back in the States, and when they wake up and one of them says, I just don't want to go to school today, it's so easy for me to point out one of their friends that doesn't have the opportunity to go to school. I'll just say, don't you think that Stephen would love to go to your school? And they're just like, what am I thinking? Of course, I need to get up and get to school. Anyhow, since then, we have started a little nonprofit called One Common Thread. You can find us at onecommonthread.org. These women, they sew quilt kits and they sew quilts, and we sell them online for them. And even though we have relocated back to the States, I still go down every 3 to 4 months and assess their needs and pick up their work and take them more work. And we've just been growing and growing. And now we have about 80 women who are sewing in the slums of San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and then some other cities around there.
That is such an incredible mission. And I love how you did that with your family. That is such a testament to the brother and sisterhood that we have with all mankind. And I am so inspired by it. And I do love the faith that y'all practiced being there. I just think that is so beautiful. Speaking of that faith, I also really love how you talked about the faith that you have in the connection that you have to your brothers with your daughter, and then also that you have with your nieces and nephews here on this earth. And I love that you'd mentioned one way to strengthen our family ties is to really hone in on these lessons from our family, from our ancestry. And so when you talk about hard work, that's something that you say that your family has done, that you can do hard things as a family. And that is part of your family culture that has been passed on before you. It's something that you're passing on. And I think if we can tie into that in our own lives and look at stories from our past and be able to say, you know what, this is what our family does, that will help us grow those family ties. So sisters, for our call to action this week, we're going to call on y'all to strengthen your family ties by taking some time to learn a new story from your family's past, or share a story from the past that you already know with your kids and talk to each other about how the moral of that story applies to your family today. Now, if doing family history is just not your thing, and you know you're not going to do that, we encourage you to strengthen those family ties by reaching out to a cousin or a grandparent or a sister or brother this week. We are so grateful that you've joined us here today, Courtney. It has truly been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really think that this is such a great podcast, and I think it really can strengthen other women. I think that once we know that somebody has gone through something hard, it gives us strength knowing that we can do this. And I love that call to action. I love that we were able to talk about that, because at night when I put my girls to bed, I still have two little ones that wanted a bedtime story, and I just say, just pick a subject or pick a year, and I try to remember something about when I was in third grade and tell them a story, or something about their grandfather when he was in World War II. We talk about all different situations, and it's really been fun.
I love that. That goes to our title of this week's episode, which is Family Ties, because really our family ties strengthen us. So, Courtney, how can our sisters connect with you?
You can find me easily on Facebook or Instagram. Our handle is One Common Thread Quilts. And of course, if you emailed our website, you're going to get straight in contact with me there too, because I answer all of the questions, and the little chat that comes in on the box at the bottom of the screen that says, ask a question. It's me answering your questions. So sometimes I'm sleeping and I don't answer until a couple hours later. But
sleeping is allowed. You do a lot of work. So we hope, sisters, that y'all have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have today. Go find One Common Thread on Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to also check in with @HeySisterPodcast on Instagram or Facebook as well. We'll talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
do you want me to tell you the whole story about my brother and his son?
Tell us what you're willing and able to share. I do love this story a lot. This is such a great story. So please share if you're willing to. If you don't,
No,
if you're like,
okay. It's
Okay.
fine, because we are totally transparent people in my family. I mean, we really are the ones that like call each other and say, your hair is too light. You really need to darken it. No.